would do a comparison video between Distress Ink and Distress Oxide. Excuse my dirty fingers because I've been crafting, but I wanted to film this video. So, the first differences are that the Distress inks come in the baby size as well. They're not the same colour, but you have the tiny little one that's a quarter of the size. But the Distress Oxides only come in the big ink pad and probably will only ever come in the big ink pad due to the formula of the ink. You can get re-inkers for both ink pads. The re-inker for the Distress Oxide comes in a little bottle like this and has a mixing ball because of the nature of the ink. It's a pigment and dye, so it separates, which I think is why they have problems with trying to make it into a smaller pad. But so you have to really shake your re-inker before using it. And then the Distress ink re-inkers come in a bottle like this, and they've got a squidgy pipette in them, so you can pipette up your ink and then drip it into your ink pad to refill it. So, you can also ink blend with both, and you can use them both with water as well. So there's quite a lot of similarities between them, but the differences are that this one has the pigment ink in it, which means it stays wet longer. So you can heat emboss with Distress ink, but it would work better with Distress Oxide. Also, Distress inks are mainly formulated for techniques like ink blending and backgrounds and things, so they don't stamp very crisply, but the Oxides having the pigment in do stamp crisply. So you've got those two differences as well. I thought I would just show some examples of the similarities and differences between them. I mean, I'm not really an expert, so I may miss some things out, but I thought it would be nice to show the differences and similarities. So, I like to use the round inking foams for my ink pads. I thought I'd just tell you how I store them. For the ink pads that I only have the big versions of, I just take one of these little Ziploc bags, and I've written broken china on it, and then I just got all my sponges for that. I used to use the rectangle or a piece of cut and dry foam. I did used to have them on a ring, but it was getting really annoying, so they're just in a box now. But I've only got like 10 big pads, so it's not too difficult to work out which one's which and everything. The baby size is perfectly sized to fit the foam blending tool in the bottom, and you can store them in the Ranger mini Distress ink storage tins. I tend to store all of my little ink pads in these tins because they're so useful. So, and then for my Oxide inks, I haven't figured out a really good way of storing them yet, because if you stored them in bags like this, because they're pigmenty, they'll get all over the inside of the bag and probably make the velcro-y side of it really dirty. So I've just been storing them in one of these little boxes. I just put the washi tape on just in case they fall off and fall everywhere. These boxes are, I think they're advertised as playing card boxes because they're sort of narrow and you could fit a pack of playing cards in them, or business card boxes. But yeah, I found them on eBay or Amazon or something. Yeah, so that's just how I store my sponges for them. So I thought I would show the ink blending as well. Now, personally, I prefer Distress ink, but there are a lot of people who now prefer the Oxides because they say that they're easier to blend with. I just find I make more of a mess with the Oxides because I get it on my fingers or it's all on the mat, and but that's just personal preference really. So anyway, oh, and the difference is very noticeable too. They're both the same, exactly the same kind of pad, but obviously the dye ink is translucent and the pigment ink is more opaque. So this does work on darker cardstocks as well. Actually, I've got a piece of dark card here, so I'll try it on that too. So we can just ink blend a little bit of, I'm using broken china here by the way, because I have them both in big pads. So that's just a bit of ink blending to show. My sponge is a bit dirty, I think. So you definitely get a stronger colour straight away with the oxide. You can still fade it out. You have to use a lot less pressure though to get this sort of faded look, otherwise you get these harsh lines. That's another reason why I prefer the Distress inks, because I think you're less likely to get the harsh lines, but that's just me. So there we go. That's a little bit of ink blending using both of them, and I'll show you the oxide on the black as well. So they do show up on black, whereas if you went in with the Distress ink, it's nothing. It doesn't show at all because it's translucent. So there is a slight colour difference really between the two as well. I'd say this looks more like peacock feathers, but anyway. You can also use them direct to paper and wet them as well. So direct to paper, I'll just swipe that on. That's the kind of look that you would get. And with the oxide you get a much thicker application due to their pigment. Right, and then you can zoom out a bit more. If I squidge this onto the mat, they do react really differently with water as well. So let's just put them there like that. So if you're squirting the normal ink with water, you can see it just wets it. But if you're squirting the oxide with water, it creates the oxidized look and makes all of the white come out in the ink. So let's get a paintbrush. So you can easily watercolour with these, just like so, and you can easily watercolour with your oxides too. You do want to make sure your puddle is mixed up nicely though, so you get the different things, the different properties mixing together. Okay, and then I could show you bleaching as well. So I think I'll just take that uptake tube and splash on some water to the ink blended bit that we did. And we can leave it for a few seconds. And then we can take a piece of kitchen roll and dab it up. So that's the faux bleach look on Distress ink, and that's the faux bleach look on Distress Oxide, because it gives them more of a white look to the ink, which is the oxidized look. Okay, so I also want to show stamping as well, and I think that's the last main technique to show the two differences. I'm going to use this Tonic stamp just because I've got it here, and I'll use this one. So you can stamp with Distress inks, as I said before, but they won't give you a really crisp impression. They often give you more of like a bubbly impression because the water-based ink tends to bead up on your stamp. But that's just because they weren't initially formulated to be a stamping ink, but you can use them for stamping. So that's the stamped impression. You see what I mean? It's kind of a little bit splotchy. If I ink up the stamp again actually and show you, you can see how it doesn't look like a full coverage. It's all just beads of ink on the surface. But when you stamp with the Oxide inks, it's full coverage on the stamp. Proper full coverage because of the pigment, and when you stamp with it you get a much crisper impression. So there's my quick video comparing Distress inks. Oh, actually, one second. I was going to stamp on the black as well to show you. There we go. See, you can even stamp on black with them. So that's my quick video showing the differences and similarities between Distress ink and Distress Oxide, and I was using Broken China as a direct comparison because I have the big pad in Broken China as well, and we showed ink blending with a mini ink blending tool, ghosting with water splashes, stamping using them as a watercolour, and also direct paper. So I hope this video was informative and helpful to you, and that you enjoyed watching it and listened to my rabbiting on. So thank you, see you again soon, bye.